So in this little tutorial I want to show you guys how to get your page set up. So if you recall from the first step here in task 1, we brought in a bunch of data. You should have called me out for doing something silly. Notice this still says untitled, which means I have not saved it. So I'm going to save that here. Oops. In lab 3, so I'll call this lab 3 geologic map. You can call it whatever you like, just don't put spaces in the name. So remember, save as frequently as you're willing to redo your work. And then you'll also recall from lab 1 that we always go in and store relative path names so we can pick these things up and move them around. And so now what we need to do is we need to set up our page and our data frame. And so I'm going to switch over to the data view, or sorry, from the data view to the layout view. And we're going to want to make this at the exact same scale as this other geologic map here. So, whoops, so that is 1 to 100,000. So if I go 1 to 100,000, get a nice little loud, annoying sound. And I can click on this data frame. So that's just zoomed right into the middle of this thing, and as long as I use the pan function, I'll maintain that scale, and I can check that up here. It's still at 1 to 100,000. And so what we'd like to do is get ourselves a little geologic map focused around Logan and the city here. And so the next step that we're going to do is set this data frame to the right size. So if you recall from this map, it has, if I turn pan on, it has these nice sort of labels around the edge. It has a scale bar at the bottom. And so we need some room for this collar material. We need a little bit of room for a title at the top. And we're also going to need a fair bit of room at the bottom of the page so that we can fit our legend on. And so what we're going to do is go to Properties of the data frame. And I go to Size and Position. And what I want to do is I'm going to make my anchor point the top of the page. And I'm going to position this thing 1 inch, and let's call that, I think we want to do 1.5 inches. Let's do that. See what that looks like. Aha! So that's going from the bottom up, right? So we're going to have to go a little bit more than that. So let's try 10 inches. Okay, so that gives us enough room. So we got a 1-inch border around this, and we have plenty of room here for title at the top. Let's make this guy 6.5 inches instead of some sort of arbitrary size in width, and let's make it 6 inches of an 11-inch page. Okay, so there's our map. That should give us a lot of room for the legend and whatnot at the bottom. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our catalog, and and I'm going to go to the folder that I'm working in here. Let's call it working data. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to make a new blank shapefile. And I'm going to make it of type polygon. As far as the coordinate system goes, I'll just steal that from one of the existing layers that we had here. So UTM zone 12 north, very good. And we'll call this, what we want to make this is a shapefile that's going to match the extents of that data frame, because we're going to clip some of the data, not all of it, but some of it down to that extent. So I'll hit OK. So it's brought that in. It's blank. It doesn't have anything in it at the moment. I'm going to turn off some of this just so it draws a little faster. Okay. Right. So if I want to get the extents of this, it's going to take a little bit of fudging here. So what we're going to end up doing, I need to turn on my editor toolbar. I'm still in the layout view. I'm going to hit start editing. I'm going to start editing new Logan map limits. Now that's going to let me create a feature here. And what I'll create is a rectangle, and I'll try and go as close as I can to the edge of this. If I hold the shift key down, something like that. And then we'll try and take it as best we can here. All right. So there's our rectangle that's not perfect, and we'll see that it's not perfect in just a second. So I'm going to switch into my data view. So first thing I am going to do is get rid of this border, or this symbology that is not hollow. So I'll make it hollow so I can see underneath it. Okay. Oops, the refresh was canceled. Okay, there it comes in, so I can see it's still selected. So on the handwritten instructions, I give you one way to do this. There's a bunch of ways to do this, but all we're trying to do is make this box exactly the right size for the map above it. And the reason for that is so we can clip some of these layers down to just that view. And that'll become apparent a little bit later why we're going to such great lengths to do that. Up on the editor toolbar, if I use this feature select tool, I can right click on this thing and I can hit edit vertices. And what that's going to do is it's going to bring up this little dialog, and on this dialog I can hit sketch properties. And with the sketch properties, I can see that I've got, if I move this little guy out of the way here, let's put it up there. See how I've selected 0, and notice which one's red and which one's that. Now if I unselect that and I select 1, see how it's that corner. Select 2 is that corner, and 3 is that corner, the start and stop. So what we want to do is for this upper left corner, as is sort of indicated in the instructions, is we're going to use we're going to round this down. Instead of 712, 426,712, we'll just make that nice and even at 426,700. And then for the y, instead of it being this, we will just round that up from 880 to 900. Okay, and so if we do that, we're going to want to make sure that this one, copy that these two, oops, sorry, actually these two have the same y. Okay, so that adjusted that so that those both have the exact same y. And then we're going to want to make sure this one and this one have the exact same x. That's important. And now we need to figure out some of the other coordinates. And remember, when I drew this out in the data view, I just sort of I just sort of roughly eyeballed it. But rough isn't good enough, and because we made this data frame exactly 6.5 inches by 6 inches, we need to then add onto this the exact correct number of units over. Yes, oh my God, you have to do math. I think you'll be all right. So let's bring up the calculator so you can cheat here. We're going to use this to calculate two things. So if we put in here distance or length, and we'll have inch, and we'll have meters. So we made this thing 6.5 inches wide. So let's just deal with the x coordinate. So right here is 426,700. We need to figure out how far in meters it is across. So it's 6.5 inches. This is 1 to 100,000. So if it's 1 to 100,000, instead of 6.5 inches, I have 650,000 inches, which is equal to 1,510 meters. So if over here I take my coordinate, my easting of 426,700, which came from right there, and then I want to get the coordinate over here for this guy, yeah? Oh, of course. Of course, of course. So I add to that my 16510, which is my meters, 443,210. Now if I look at this, 443,210 is not a million miles away from there, right? So if I update that, you can see there, it's making that a little bit wider. And we can do the same thing here, 3 to 10. All right, so that brought that out. And so now all we need to do is work out the y for this bottom coordinate. So we already have the y nice and even for the top. And for this, you have to remember that we made it 6 inches, right? And so instead of 650,000, it'll be 600,000. And then if we take that top y coordinate this time, this guy, in millions. Oops, I don't want to memory. Clear memory. Okay, so we'll paste that guy in. And then we will subtract from it the 1,524. The 15,240 meters. So that'll take our y coordinate and get us down to what our bottom coordinate should be. So for this, we end up with 460. Oops. Oh, forgive me. This does not like us to do it this way. So 4,607,660. So that 7660 is what we have to remember. The end there. 7660. Whoops. Oh, come on now. Now you're just being lame. All right. $7,660. Okay. There it redraws that. 7660. Okay, so now I've got a whole new rectangle that is exactly the right dimensions. So if I hit editor, save edits, and editor, stop editing, and I come back out to my layer view, notice that our scale switched here to 1147. So I'm going to bring that back to 1 to 100,000. And I can just pan and try and line this up perfectly, right? But we can do things exactly. We're supposedly professionals, aren't we? So we can go into So we were in size and position before. This is where we set the size of that data frame on the piece of paper, right? So on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So if instead we come back to data frame, and the extent right now is just automatic. Notice up here it's 1 to 100,000. I have some options. So I can do a fixed scale. Right now it's fixed at 1 to 100,000. Or I can do a fixed extent. And so here, if I use those exact same coordinate values that we had before, we'll find out how well this works. So it might have been nice if we had that sketch properties up so we could see that. So why don't we do that? We'll just cheat here. We'll continue editing. And we will hit sketch properties just so we can see them. Edit vertices. Okay, so there they are. Now the trick is to come back out to the data frame. So now instead of using that select tool, I'm using this select tool. I've got the data frame. I'm going to hit properties. We'll come in here and we'll go to fixed extent, and we'll make sure that we enter in these exact same coordinates as over on the left. So for the top, it's going to be 4, 6 instead of 2, 3, 2, 2, 9. Okay, 2, 2, 9. Whoops. 0, 0. Okay. On the bottom, it's going to be 4, 6, 0, 7, 6, 6, 0. Okay. On the right, it's going to be 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And on the left, it's going to be 4, 2, 6, 700. So we'll just get rid of that. Right? And so if I hit apply, notice that the scale is grayed out. I can't change it because I did a fixed extent. And now that size is exactly the same size. So we haven't just roughly done it. We've actually made it perfect. Okay. So we want to stop editing. And we will move on to the next step where we prepare our data to display in this area of interest. But what we just did right here was we very painstakingly set up the page and our data frame, and then we made a shapefile that's precisely the same size as that data frame with exactly the same scale, 1 to 100,000. So we've done everything very, very carefully here. All right, that's it.